Hey, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I want to talk about why I believe my generation, Gen Z, is struggling to launch their careers. And it's not going to be based off of the main talking points that I think we see today, where the job market's cooked, it's more difficult for people to find work, AI is taking over entry level jobs, all of these things. Yes, I think that plays a role in it. But from my work experience and my career experience, what I've analyzed and seen the most being the thing that causes my generation to struggle with starting their career is this belief that their career is a destination versus a journey. And I want to walk you through some personal context into my career so that you can kind of see where I'm coming from. And it's up to you to decide if you agree with my thesis into the situation. So I'm currently 28 years old. I've been working about 10 years since the age of 18. I've been working, and I've worked at 4 different companies. And my perspective when working at all of these different companies that I've been at is that I've always been in my career. I started off my first quote unquote job working part time as a sortation associate at Amazon in Kent, Washington, which is the state that I was born and raised in. And right after high school, I started my first job, and it was that part time role working in a warehouse. And I worked there from 2016 to 2018. Now, my mindset when I was working in that warehouse was that I was already in my career, right? This is an opportunity for me to get work experience, to get skills. I think Amazon gets in a lot of negative flack just on, worker conditions and, all of these kind of things. From my personal experience, it was a good job. I liked working it. When I was working that job, I viewed that I was already in my career because I seen a lot of opportunities that Amazon did even within like the warehouse like space. There was different opportunities for you to take on extra roles, responsibilities. I seen countless amount of people work their way up to supervisor level positions and management level positions within the warehouse space. But early on from that first job, I witnessed a lot of my peers, especially within my age demographic, have this mentality that this is just a job. I'm in college right now, I'm in school. My career is somewhere off in the further distance, right? Like right now, what I'm doing right now is not my career. This is just a job. And so what I noticed is those people that had that mentality did not take on extra responsibilities, did not take advantage of the opportunity to try to level up within this organization and try to get extra titles, roles, responsibilities that they can add onto their resume to then convert into the next opportunity. So my peers didn't do that, but I did. And I did that for 2 years. And when I left Amazon, the last role that I held, for anybody that's worked within Amazon warehouse, this position, you go from, kind of a regular associate, and then they have some like learning and training roles. And then you can get a supervisor position. I did Amazon's seasonal process assistant role that they hold, and it's usually during like peak season, which is during like the Christmas kind of like winter time. And I did that seasonal, so I did a seasonal full-time supervisor position. I didn't get paid extra for it. The only benefit that I really had from that job from a pay standpoint is I was converted from working part-time as a associate to full-time. And so I worked the last holiday season in the year of 2018 as a full-time temporary seasonal supervisor. Now, the benefit of that was I got that title on my resume, which then I then used to leverage into the next role, the next company that I left to. So I immediately following that holiday season left Amazon and then joined a new company that was at the airport. Now this company that was at the airport was an up and coming company. It's called Clear. If anybody's traveled, it's a fast pass lane at the airport. You see the little associates, trying to sell it to you. You've probably signed up for one of the free trials. I left Amazon as a supervisor to go get into a role there, which was a sales job, which is completely different than working in the warehouse. And even when I joined that company, I was quick to realize that a lot of people within my generation, Gen Z, were in school, and there were some people there that took that sales job because it was a commission sales job, an hourly sales job. There are some people that took it as a career, and they're bringing a lot of money. I mean, like our top sellers at that company were making like close to 100, if not $100,000 a year just off the commission and signing up people at the airport. So there were some people there that took it as a career, but many of the people that were within my generation viewed that as just a job, right? Like, I'm not here to, try to level up. I don't want to take on extra roles or responsibilities. I'm in school to do X, Y, Z, whatever. My career starts in the distance. What I'm doing right now is not part of my career. So I noticed the same kind of mindset, right, within Clear that I noticed within Amazon. Two different places, same generation. There's a correlation. These people were in school and they thought, I'm doing something in the future. What I'm doing right now doesn't matter. I had a completely different approach, and it was the same approach that I had within Amazon. I said, this is an opportunity for me to add extra skills, responsibilities, try to level up as much as I can within this organization so that I can get things that I can put on my resume. And all during this time, I was still in school too. I was doing school part-time, but I really had to work because I wasn't afforded the opportunity to, not work. I needed to work to be able to pay for my bills, to be able to help. I was living with my parents at the time to help contribute to the rent that they were paying for our apartment that we're staying in. So I had to have these kind of like responsibilities. But my mindset when I was working at Clear was, this is me being in my career. This is an opportunity for me to add skills, get extra responsibilities and really build something on my resume. And so I did that. When I started Clear in the spring of 2019, right after leaving Amazon. Within 6 months, I got promoted from an entry-level sales specialist into a supervisor, senior sales representative. And then I held that role for a year. The pandemic hit in 2020. And then coming out of 2020, because of my contributions that I made during the pandemic, I was able to get promoted to a manager position. But the promotion for the manager position, which was just an entry-level manager position, required me to move down here to the Bay Area. And for those that have, seen other videos on the channel, I'm currently living in California in the Bay Area. What brought me to the Bay Area was the promotion from a supervisor in Seattle, Washington, to this entry-level manager position here in San Francisco. And then I moved to San Francisco in 2021, right in February, March, going into the spring of 2021. Now, had I not had the mindset that there's career opportunities here and that my career has already started when working at Amazon and when working at Clear, I never would have got the titles. I never would have got the responsibilities. I would have never had the opportunity to leave my hometown, to come all the way out here to the Bay Area, to really build something for my career. Now, 6 months into working, at Clear, I realized as a manager, 6 months as working at Clear as a manager down in the Bay Area, I realized that I was afforded a really good opportunity. When I moved down here, I was 23 years old. Everybody else that held my position as like a operations like sales manager was 30 years old and older. So I was definitely ahead of my years. There wasn't a lot of people that were in my age bracket that thought that the company was a place that they wanted to work at long term. And so they never tried to follow like the same kind of career path. And so I was afforded a great opportunity. I got the skills, I got the title, which was very important for my resume. And I parlayed that into a new opportunity down here in California. So when I moved down to California, I underestimated, housing cost. I wasn't that educated. I thought making $62,000 a year salary, which is what I was making at Clear, was a lot. It really wasn't. If you know state income taxes here in California, that's crazy. If you know just the cost, and this was back in 2021, it still was high. Just the cost of living is quite high. So $62,000 a year wasn't a lot. So 6 months into being down here, I had to test the job market. And I had to test the job market to find a job that would pay me more. Because even though I was doing great work at that company, there just wasn't opportunities unless I got promoted to be able to make more money. So I tested the job market with my title and joined a startup company that was looking to open up, locations here in the Bay Area. They're based out of New York. I thought it would be great. I was young. they offered me 50% increase on salary. So I went from making $62,000 a year all the way into $90,000 a year. And that was probably the most fun I ever had working at a company. This was a tech startup company. They're VC backed. So they're, got a lot of venture capital funding based out of New York. I got to travel a lot at the age of 23 for work. I supported working in New York, Miami, Washington, D.C., these various different cities that they had, their business that they were, really growing. And that company that I was working at, they closed down, but their business model is they were essentially launching ghost kitchen deliveries out of hotel space, and ghost kitchen deliveries and, delivery food service was really booming, especially in 2021, 2020, 2022, coming out of, the pandemic. And so it seemed like a very promising company. And what I enjoyed most about it was the traveling, the networking opportunities, the 50% increase that I saw in salary. And at 23 years old, making $90,000 a year, I thought I was rich. I've never touched that money before. This was the most anybody in my family's ever made from a W-2 job. And so I felt like I was living large, and I thought things were moving really fast. And I really felt like I was in my career. Like this would be a job, a title that, people would classify as a career. And the only way I was able to get there was because the previous couple jobs that I worked at before, I had viewed as a career. That startup position that I got and the role that I held at that startup was being in charge of logistics as like an operations regional manager within the San Francisco market. And the person that hired me for that job had previously worked as one of the operations managers for Amazon. So they're more captivated based on my supervisor, seasonal skills that I had working at Amazon, and then the formal management position that I had at Clear. And all of that experience led to me essentially landing this kind of startup role. Had I not had that experience, and I've been one of these people that just thought, my career is going to start some further down in the distance, I never would have been afforded that opportunity. Now, I took that role in October of 2021. I lasted in that role for 8 months until about April of 2022. That's when I was laid off. The company provided me a severance package. It was pretty disappointing to get laid off, but then a week and a half later, more people got laid off from the company. And then 2 weeks later, the company dissolved. It closed down. And so they weren't able to receive any more, venture capital funding. They were a Series B company when I was working there in funding, and they just weren't able to make it to Series C, the next funding round. And so the company closed down. And then I was unemployed, and I was a little bit disappointed just that I wasn't able to, carry out in that job longer. I was very smart when I was working at that job and saving a lot of money, because I knew working for startup companies, while they might pay a higher amount of money, and there's a great way to add a lot of skills and responsibilities, on your plate, and you wear many different hats, and it's fun and it's exciting. They're not stable. And so I saved a lot of money and put a lot of money away so that when I got laid off, even though I was surprised that I got laid off, I was able to have a good amount of runway so I can stay down here in California and still explore the job market, which is what I did. And that brought me to the company I currently work at now, which is Apple. And I currently work as a manager here at Apple. And the reason I was able to land this position was because of the title that I held working at the startup as an operations regional manager, the operations manager position that I held working at Clear, which is what brought me down to California, all of the sales associate kind of experience working at Clear, and then my Amazon background. And now I've been holding this job for 4 years, since about July of 2022, and I'm thriving in my career. I'm making over $100,000 a year. If you've seen previous videos, last year I brought in $142,000. That is before taxes, but it's the most money that I've ever made in my career. And when I look at the journey, it all started with my first quote unquote job. The place that most of my peers thought was not going to be something that they could turn into something that they can use within their career. And I've noticed this trend across all of the different companies, again, that I've worked at. A lot of people still operate in this space that their career is somewhere further in the distance, and they don't take what they're currently doing serious and use it as a way to convert it into better opportunities. And I think if more of Gen Z, my generation, would do that, if they would look at the work that they're currently doing, if you got a job right now in 2026, you're blessed. If you take that job that you have serious and view it as a career opportunity to add on skills, to add on, responsibilities, to take on extra projects, things that you can build into your resume, you can then leverage that into new opportunities. It's interesting because a lot of people within Gen Z will complain that there's not opportunities, there's not entry level work, but they frown down upon when they're in college a lot of those entry level jobs, especially like in retail places or wherever it's at. They don't view those as their career. They view it as just a job. But I had a different approach, and I'm always looking for ways to take what I'm currently doing and parlay it into something better. And right now, I'm thriving in my career. And I'm also one of the youngest, if not the youngest person to hold my title. When I joined this company right now that I'm working at, I was 24. I was making over $100,000 a year, 28 now, and still making over $100,000 a year. And it's only up from here, right? I've already carved out so much experience, and I'm going to continue to leverage that experience to launch me into new opportunities. And that's kind of the play, right? That's how you get ahead, in your career. That's how you build something that you can be proud of. And I reflect back, it's all been a journey. I never would have thought 10 years ago, starting off as a part-time warehouse associate at Amazon, that I would be where I'm at today. But it's definitely been a journey. But it was a mindset thing. I've always took every place that I've worked at as serious. And I can't stand when people look down upon the place that they're working at because they have future goals and aspirations that they think are bigger than what they're currently doing. That's not operating in humility. That's not giving you the best opportunity to acquire skills. That's going to push away people in these different organizations that want to mentor you. And I'm going to make a different video on that, just talking about all of the different mentors that I had within each of the companies that I worked at. And the only way I was able to get mentored by these people to help me level up my career is because they saw my grit, they saw my hustle, they saw my drive. They knew that I was striving for more than what I was currently doing, but I didn't come in and do the bare minimum. I wasn't lazy. I took on extra work, a lot of times extra work that I wasn't getting paid for, but that extra work was stuff that I could put on my resume, which then I parlayed into different opportunities. And I job topped a few times every 2 years, 2.5 years, a few times within my career, and leveled up my salary 50%, if not 50%, from the first job, and then about 30 to 40% the second job, which is where I'm currently at right now. So that's kind of my analysis as to why I think a lot of people in Gen Z are struggling to find work. I know this is a little bit of a longer video, but I don't think it's just because the job market's cooked and there's not entry-level work. I think now it's difficult to find like entry-level work because if you got a college degree and you're trying to go work part-time at Chipotle, probably the hiring manager knows that you're not trying to be there long term, so that makes it a little bit difficult. But there was a lot of jobs that people have held while in school that they just didn't take serious because they thought school was the most important thing. They thought their career was in the future distance, and they thought they were going to skip a lot of these different kind of steps and just launch fully into the career, and you're not. And now I'm working and surrounded by a lot of people that I personally manage or have managed in previous companies that are struggling with that, right? They're struggling with the hard reality of feeling like they might have wasted time in the past, or regretting that they focused so much just on college and didn't really take all of the jobs they had serious and view it as part of their career journey. They viewed it as a separate thing that's just something that's there to pay their bills. And you can have that approach, but it's just going to take you a lot longer to actually launch like your career. And I always will believe that when the second you start working, your career started, right? Because that is an opportunity for you to get skills, and that's your work history. That's stuff that you're able to parlay and turn into different opportunities. But if you squander it, if you look down upon it, if you don't put in like the work and really leverage that opportunity that you currently are in, it's going to be difficult to get to where you want to go next. And again, the career is a journey. It's not a destination, and it's going to take different winds and turns. and you never know where you might end up. And I never imagined 10 years ago I'd be living in California working at this company. I've met my wife working at this company. We've started our family while both working at this company. I mean, so many things happen, and it all started from me working part-time as a warehouse associate in Amazon in Kent, Washington, at one of their sortation centers, and then just grinding it out at each place that I was at and acquiring skills, leveling up. And I think a lot of people should have that opportunity. So if you're watching this and you got a job that you view as just a 9 to 5 dead-end job that you're not taking serious and you're trying to launch it as something else, you might need to reflect and think on how where you're currently working at right now plays into your career journey, and maybe take the work a little bit more serious and see how you can add on tasks, projects, responsibilities that you can use to build yourself more experience that you can then convert into a new opportunity. And remember that your career is a journey, it's not a destination. So that's it for the video. Hope you liked it. Hit the like button, subscribe. I'm just going to be continuing to drop daily videos documenting my life, navigating career, personal finances, investments. I have a new family, just family life, everything. And I want to build a community of people that want to ride with me through the journey. So hope you have a good day. Take care.